Title: Eye of the Storm by Okeresh Azubuike. Chapter 4: The Boy Who Remembered Tomorrow. The days after Obieze's burial moved like smoke, drifting, shapeless, slow. The songs of Umuaka had quieted. Laughter had become an echo of itself. The udu tree, blackened by fire, stood like a monument to grief. Imezi no longer played with the other children. She spent her days near the river, watching it twist and shimmer under the sun, whispering to it like it might whisper back. Sometimes, she thought she heard Obieze's voice in the ripples. Don't let the river swallow you. But one morning, as she sat by the bank, tracing circles in the mud, a stone skipped across the water and landed near her feet. "Your face will crack if you frown any harder," a voice teased. She looked up. A boy stood on the opposite bank, barefoot, smiling, his eyes too calm for someone so young. He had a round calabash slung over his shoulder and a mischievous grin that reminded her of sunlight after rain. "Who are you?" she asked. "Kezie," he said, "and you must be the girl who talks to rivers." Her brows lifted. "How did you know that?" He shrugged. "The river told me." She stared at him. "Rivers don't talk." "Ah," he said with mock seriousness. "Then you haven't been listening properly." Kezie was a wanderer, son of a traveling trader who passed through Umuaka on his way to Nsukka. His mother, it was said, came from the people of Idoma, and his father from Ngwa, a mix that made him seem both familiar and foreign. He knew songs no one in Umuaka had ever heard, and stories about kingdoms that sounded more dream than real. When Imezi asked him where he'd learned them, he'd grin and say, "From before." Before what? He'd just shrug. Before now. The darkness came with the traders from the north. A small, wary group arrived in Umuaka, their features hardened by sun and sorrow. They brought tales of unrest, of villages disappearing in the night, of a strange, silent blight that killed crops and hope. They spoke of the ones who walk without footprints, men who could persuade a brother to betray a brother with honeyed words that tasted of ash. That evening, as the village gathered to hear the traders' tales, Imezi and Kezie sat at the edge of the circle, listening intently. One of the traders, a man with a scar running down his cheek, caught Imezi's eye. He smiles, but it did not reach his eyes. His gaze felt like a cold hand on her skin. Later, as the children were sent to their huts, the man approached them, seemingly by chance. "The little ones with old eyes," he said, his voice a whispering silken rustle. "The land is full of wonder, is it not? There are places where the water grants eternal youth, where pleasure is the only law, and power is a fruit ripe for the picking. Far from all this, struggle." Kezie stepped slightly in front of Imezi, his body tense. "We are content with our struggle." The man's smile widened, becoming a predatory thing. "Are you? The world is changing. Great kingdoms will rise and fall. The strong will not just survive, they will rule. You too. You shine so brightly. You are not meant for this simple dirt. You could walk through the ages as kings, not witnesses. There are those who would welcome you, teach you to wield your gifts." Imezi felt a pull, a seductive whisper at the edge of her mind, offering a vision of a magnificent marine kingdom, of endless revelry and power without pain. But beneath the glittering surface, she sensed a profound cold, a void where a heart should be. She thought of her father's strength, her mother's golden song, of Kezie's honest smile. "No," she said, her voice small but firm. "We decline your offer." The man's face went blank, the false warmth vanishing. The air around him seemed to darken and grow cold, just as it had in Kezie's dream. "A pity. The path of good is long and fraught with pain. The shadows are patient. We will extend our invitation again, in another life." He melted back into the night, leaving them standing alone, the cheerful sounds of the village suddenly feeling distant and fragile. Kezie found Imezi's hand and held it tight. His was trembling. "The shadows from my dream," he breathed. Imezi squeezed back, her own heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The innocent universe of their childhood had just cracked open, and through the fissure they had glimpsed the endless, waiting dark. Their great adventure had begun, and it was far more perilous than they could have ever imagined. Kezie was different. One afternoon, they were by the riverbank, skipping flat stones across the brown water. "Do you ever feel like you've done this before?" Kezie asked, his stone skipping 6 times before sinking. "Not just this, but everything. Like we're in a story that's being told again." Imezi nodded, her gaze fixed on the water. "Sometimes, in my dreams, I see markets larger than Umuwaka, with people in clothes of shining threads and buildings that touch the clouds. I hear music that is not from our drums. I dream of the desert," Kezie whispered, his voice low. "Great seas of sand, and stars so bright they look like holes in a dark blanket. And I dream of shadows that walk like men. They have no faces, but they are looking for something, for someone." The air around them grew cold despite the sun. Imezi rubbed her arms. "I don't like that dream." "Neither do I," Kezie admitted. "But it feels important." Their bond deepened with each shared secret, each unexplained knowing. They were wild and free, 2 spirits drinking in the universe, unaware that they were the central figures in a prophecy as old as the hills they called home. They felt destined for great things, a feeling that filled them not with pride, but with a thrilling sense of purpose. They met every afternoon under the Odo tree near the path to the hills. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they sat in silence, just listening to the world breathe. Kezie taught her how to make whistles from bamboo and how to climb trees without scraping her knees. She taught him how to shape clay into figurines and how to hum to the rhythm of the wind. One evening, as the sun bled gold across the horizon, they sat watching a caravan of traders pass, men with camels and woven baskets, women with beads and distant eyes. "I'm going to follow them one day," Imezi said suddenly. "To where?" "Everywhere," she whispered. "Beyond the Arongwu hills, beyond all the places I can name. Maybe even to where the river begins." Kezie smiled faintly. "Then I'll come with you. Someone has to make sure you don't talk the moon to sleep." She laughed, the sound like the first real spark of joy since Obizi's death. "And what if your father doesn't let you?" "My father says the world is too wide to stay in one place," Kezie said, picking up a pebble. "He says a traveler never dies. He just becomes a story." That night, as they walked home, a cold wind swept through the forest, carrying whispers, soft, slippery, wrong. "Do you hear that?" Imezi asked, shivering. Kezie's expression changed. He looked toward the trees. "They come when the light fades," he murmured. "The Ndi Ocha Anya, the ones born of shadows." She frowned. "Who are they?" "Not who," he said quietly. What? Before she could ask more, 3 shapes emerged from the darkness. Tall, lean, draped in shimmering mist. Their eyes glowed faintly, like dying embers. The air turned cold and heavy. The tallest one spoke, voice smooth as oil. Daughter of the storm, son of the wanderer, you walk the edge of your paths too early. Imezi's breath caught. What do you want? The shadow smiled. Only to offer friendship. There are gifts for those who see beyond their time. You have both seen, haven't you? The past, the future, the ache of knowing. Kezie stepped in front of her, his hand tightening around hers. We don't need your gifts. The figure's eyes narrowed. You will. When your years stretch long and the world forgets your names, you will remember this night. We will wait. Then, like smoke touched by wind, they vanished. The silence that followed was too loud. Imezi whispered, "What were they?" Kezie looked up at the moon, his face unreadable. "Temptations," he said. "There are always those who want power without price."
When they reached the village, Dibia Nwokedi was waiting by his shrine, as if he had known they would come. "You met them, didn't you?" he asked. Imezi nodded slowly. The old man sighed. "The Ndi Ocha Anya. They have walked this world longer than kingdoms have stood. They feed on destiny. They have seen you, and now you must walk carefully." "But why us?" she asked. "Because," Nwokedi said, looking from her to Kezie, "your souls are woven from the same lightning. You are halves of a circle, drawn to each other across lifetimes. Where one goes, the other must follow." Kezie looked at Imezi and grinning, trying to lighten the weight of the moment. "So we're stuck together, eh?" she smirked. "If you keep talking this much, maybe not for long." Even the Dibia chuckled softly. "Good. Keep laughter between you. It confuses the shadows."